All right. With that, I think let's get started with the session. And this is essentially going to be on the NMAT. So anything that you want to ask about NMAT and whatever queries that you have with respect to the application process or the admission process, or with respect to the NMAT as a test. In today's session, we'll try and answer those questions. So what I'll do is, again, a lot of it is going to come from my own experience of taking it as a mentor in the last 3 years. So last 3 years have been very interesting because when I took it for the first time in 2020, it was not adaptive, and it was a very different paper back then, wherein the cutoffs used to be somewhere around 210, 212, etc. And at that time, I had a score of 270, which was like the highest score in the old format. Then it changed to an adaptive format in the year 21, in 2020 rather, where it became adaptive, and the last 2 years have been adaptive. So that's what we are going to essentially talk about. So how do you handle an adaptive test as well? Because a lot of students are very scared about adaptive nature of the test. They think that they'll not be able to score well. But there are a couple of things that you need to keep in mind, and if you do that, it should be. So we are going to talk about all of these questions. Yes, as I said, the recording will be available on YouTube. We'll be uploading it in a couple of. What does 291 mean? Oh, it was my score last to last. So NMAT gives you a score on a scale of 360 total, and 291 that year was the second highest score. Last year I had a 281, which I believe was the third highest score, because we had not heard of a lot of. The problem is the NMAT does not really give ranks, so you don't know whether you're the actual topper or not. That's one. So we rely on whatever information is available in public domain. Wherever people have shared their score, we do a comparison and see if that is possibly one of the top scores. So last year I had a 281. I think there was only one or two people that I heard were above that. That is how it is. Generally, what I've observed is that compared to my score, the cutoff is around 50-55 marks lower. So that is like a benchmark to keep at least once I take the test. I generally peg the cutoff at somewhere around 50-55 marks lower than my score. So let's get started, and we'll first start talking about the important dates, because a lot of you would have already registered for the test. But just in case you have not registered, right, the registration is ending on the 10th October. So make sure that you register prior to that, complete the entire application process as well. So NMAT and NMIMS are two separate entities. Please keep that in mind. When you register for the NMAT, you are registering only for the test, which is conducted by GMAT, the body. It has got nothing to do with NMIMS. NMIMS is the best institute that you can get through NMAT, and you need to apply to NMIMS separate. So the 3 bullet points that I mentioned there, first, the NMIMS accept score of only the first attempt that you take. So if you have taken multiple attempts, they are not going to take all of them or the best of it. They will be taking only the first NMAT attempt that you have. The second one is that candidates are supposed to register for the NMIMS before you take the NMAT. So if your NMAT is scheduled on the 20th October, you need to apply to NMIMS before 19th October. That is how it works. And lastly, for other NMAT accepting institutes, because there are other institutes such as the KJ Somaya or SDA Bakoni, they are the ones where the students may submit multiple attempts, and that is something which is dependent on the college. So KJ Somaya, last year they accepted only the first attempt. This year, what they will do, we don't know yet. But in all possibility, I think they will mostly go with the first attempt only. SDA Bakoni accepts multiple attempts, and there are a lot of other colleges which will accept the best of the 2 or 3 attempts at it. So it can be taken up to 3 times. The first attempt is what NMIMS will consider, and the remaining attempts out of them, if you have taken those, the best score can be submitted for the other NMAT accepting institute. So for NMIMS, the registration is pending on the 31st October. Okay? So make sure that you complete all your processes in terms of application. Registration end date for NMAT is 10. Registration end date for NMIMS is 31st. So you need to register for NMIMS before you take your first NMAT attempt. Okay, I hope that is clear to everybody. Yeah, a lot of you have been asking, the same question, whether it is compulsory to fill NMIMS form with NMAT form. Definitely yes. You don't have to do it on the same day, but as it is given on the slide, You have to do it before you take your first attempt of. So when you just select 5 options in the NMAT form, it doesn't mean that you have applied to those 5 colleges. Okay, so I'll talk about that as well once we move on. So the NMAT registration and the school application process are two separate things. And when you select 5 colleges in the NMAT form, that doesn't mean that you have applied to those colleges. You definitely need to fill forms of those colleges as well. Secondly, the gap between 2 attempts has to be at least 15 days. A lot of those are like very logistical things that they have put in place. There are 2 modes in which you can take it, either at the test center or at the online proctored from home attempt. The rescheduling is allowed in the same mode. So let's say you have scheduled your test in a test center mode, you can reschedule it. Let's say you're not going to take it on the same day, you can reschedule it, but in the same mode. But if you're taking a retake, then it can be in a different. And lastly, the score is available instantaneously. So once you submit the test, immediately you'll be able to see your unofficial scorecard. And within 48 hours, you get your official score. So that is how it works. Some of you have asked when to register for these colleges. Please keep in mind that all the colleges have different timelines. So you have to check with the respective colleges. We also have something called an ultimate guide that we publish for our students, which is something that you can access through my IMS dashboard. And there you will be able to find all the deadlines. Okay, so we keep updating it as and when the deadlines keep getting updated. So we try to update the ultimate guide at least once or twice a week with all the announced deadlines. So when to register for the colleges, there's no one deadline. But for NMIMS, of course, we have the date. So registration has already started, but it will end on the 31st of. Okay, I hope everybody is clear with respect to NMAT and NMIMS application. Any doubts, maybe we can take it at this point of time so that we don't have to keep talking about it again. Is the score available, like how we get our SimCAT scores on the spot? Yes, the NMAT will tell you your score immediately once you submit the paper. And the unofficial score is what is visible. The official scorecard is sent to you within 48 hours. Okay, it is on time management and so on. So we'll talk about that a little later. The recording will be available on YouTube, so we'll be uploading it there. Is there any last date to schedule the test slots as well? Yes, it is there. Please go to the NMAT website and you can check it out there. I don't have the slot booking deadline here. The exam delivery is starting on the 10th, which is the week from now, and ending on the 19th December. But in terms of slot booking as well, there are some deadlines. So you definitely have to check it out on the NMAT. Will they keep opening the slots? Yeah, so they keep opening the slots. At what frequency they open it, they have never revealed it. So we recently had a webinar with the NMAT officials, and they said that almost 80-85% of the slots have been opened already. So in case a lot of students have this question, right, as to when should I take it? I would say that if you find a slot which is convenient, book it right away. So if you think that, okay, I'm planning to take it in December, you see a slot for a certain day in December which is available, and you can maybe go to that particular test center. Please book it right away and don't wait. So don't wait for the slots to get open or more slots to open, because whatever you have right now, if they are like 80-85% of the slots, it doesn't make sense to wait for a longer period. So if you see a slot, let's say November or December, whenever you think you will be adequately prepared for that, there's no point pushing it till the very end of it. I would rather say that whenever you feel confident that, okay, I've done reasonable amount of preparation, now I can face the test, you take it, right? And it's better to book a slot as early as possible so that you know that, okay, there is also some time pressure that is created because of it. That, okay, I have to take the test on, let's say, 10 December, and now I can work with it. Should we take it after CAT ideally is like a very common question. So I would say that again, it depends on you, but you feel confident that, okay, I'm done with my prep, November also is fine, then you take it. If you think that it is going to interfere too much with your mental preparation or something, I don't really see the point of taking it early. You can take it later also, that's fine. Yeah, and it will not really affect your scores. So the test is pretty much standardized. So it's not like that you take it to it in December, then test suddenly becomes difficult or something. So a lot of people think that the test starts becoming difficult as you progress in the entire delivery. So if you take it in October, then it is easier. If you take it in December, then it is difficult or so on. There is no way to prove it, first of all, and it has not been proven earlier. Okay, so for that, to prove something like that, you need somebody who takes tests, maybe let's say in October, November, December, without any change in preparation, to sort of have any comparison of these spots, right? It doesn't even make sense to get into all these things that, oh, it becomes difficult in December, so I'm not going to take it. I would just say that you give sufficient gap to yourself. So let's say you're taking it in November, taking it very close to the CAT does not make sense because of two main reasons. One, the format is different. Two, because let's say if your attempt does not go well for some reason, mentally it might affect you. That is the second. Now, if you're somebody who is like a somebody who is very sorted in your head, maybe you are not really worried too much about how one test affects the other. So then it's fine. But it is up to you. It's very individual choice, I would say. It's better to then schedule it somewhere in the first or second week of November so that it is not very close to CAT. If you're taking it after CAT, then it doesn't even matter. Then it's just fine. Because again, I will say that you don't take it immediately after CAT. If CAT is on the 27th, you don't take NMAT on the 20th because you're coming from one test, you're already tired, trying to do well in the other. So it's better to give yourself a gap of maybe a 5 to 7 days kind of a thing. Take a couple of mocks for NMAT and then you take it. So I will just say that you give sufficient time pre-CAT, post-CAT, and then you do. There are no slots in first and second week of November. It might be there in some other venue, right? Or in some other city or online. So if you're looking at it, so I'll give you an example what happened last year as well, that I have seen people traveling from Mumbai to Pune to take their NMAT because they wanted a specific spot. So you should be ready to do those things as well if you're looking for a specific. Taking it from home is always an option, right? We spoke about that it is giving you that option to take it from home. The only concern with the home attempt is your internet should be fine, your electricity should be fine. So those are the two main reasons as to why something like an online proctored from home is not a recommended. You can take it, there's no harm in doing it, as long as you have steady internet and steady electricity supply. So if those two things are fine, it's fine to take it from. Can you add other institutes after attempting NMAT? You can do that. So in the first point, when we said that you can put 5 colleges as preference in your NMAT form, you have an option to add options there. So you can add the colleges even after you've taken the NMAT. It just means that NMAT then shares your score. That's it. You still need to apply to that college section. So let's say you're applying to SDA Bocconi, and right now you're not added it as a college. You need to check when SDA Bocconi has a deadline. You need to ensure that you add SDA Bocconi as a preference in your NMAT form and then apply to SDA Bocconi before their deadline. So you can always do that. That is NMIMS accepting first attempt only for Mumbai or for other institutes as well? Please note that NMIMS is a singular thing. Okay, though they have multiple campuses, it is NMIMS. If you read this text that I took, right, is from the official document of NMIMS. It just says NMIMS accepts score of the first NMAT attempted by the candidate. NMIMS does not distinguish between whether it's a Navi Mumbai campus or a Bangalore or a Hyderabad. You just need to take the first attempt, and that is what they're going to accept. I hope that puts an end to that question, that it's not like a campus level differentiation. The cutoffs are different, but that doesn't mean that their methodologies. So let's move ahead. We spoke about the test overview. We'll also talk a little bit on the test pattern. I believe everybody who has registered already knows what the test pattern is. But there are 36 questions in each of the sections. The time available is different, and it allows you to select the order in which you want to take the test. There's no negative marking because the test is adaptive. There is no on-screen calculator, and there are sectional and overall cutoffs for NMIMS. So you can decide what order in which you want to solve the test. So for example, I can say I'm going to do quant first, then LR, and then language. Or I can do language first, then quant, then LR. So at the beginning of the test, you see a screen on which you have to decide what the section order is going to be. And the sections will be presented to you in that order. You cannot jump from one question to another. So when you see a question, you have to attempt it, and then only you move ahead. You will not be able to see all the questions while you are taking that. You just see one question at a time, have to mark it to move ahead. And once you're marked, once you've submitted a particular question, you attempted it, you will not be able to go back and change the response to that particular question. So these are the sectional and overall cutoffs, right? I will again talk a little bit on the scoring part of the adaptive format, but these are the cutoffs. So just in case people want, you can always take screenshots of. These are official cutoffs, by the way. So no modification or anything whatsoever. These are the actual cutoffs of NMIMS last year to get an interview call. So I'll just wait on this slide for a couple of seconds. Till then, I'll just keep on answering some questions. Do we have theta questions in NMAT? No, you don't have theta, etc. All of them are MCQs. You have to select one thing, then only you can move on. Okay, so these were the cutoffs of 21. I'll also give you the 2020 cutoffs. I have those with me. I'm just going to share that as well for a reference. They didn't change too much, but for some of the colleges, of course, there were a few changes that happened from 2020 to 2021. Sectional cutoff is also there. Yes, absolutely. That is why the sectional figures are given. But this is for NMIMS. The other colleges don't really have sectional cutoffs. For example, something like an SD Bakuni or maybe a KJ Somaya, etc. They have not really said anything on the sectional cutoff. I don't think they are there. They are just looking at the overall scores. The business analytics course, yes, it is offered by NMIMS itself. So it's part of all the programs that they have. I'll also show you 2020. These are the 2020 cutoffs. You'll see that it didn't change much. So in 21, it was 232. The year prior, it was 2020. Surprising thing was, which personally I didn't understand last year as to why they did it. Last year rather, which was in 2020, that they had same sectional cutoffs everywhere. Bond, verbal, logic, all of them had a 76 as the cutoff, which is a little weird, to be honest, because the three sections don't have, first of all, similar difficulty. The scaling also operates slightly differently, I think, in all the three sections. Because especially last year, we felt that the quant scaling was a little harsh compared to the other sections that are 232 out of 232 on a scale of 360. So NMAT doesn't really have like an out of thing. That it's not marks out of something. It is a scaled score on a scale. And these two things are very different. It's a standardized test, right? So it's not like that there are so many questions, each of them carry so many marks, and that is the score that you get. So all the questions don't have same marking. It doesn't have the same marks for every single question that you see. The questions have different difficulty, hence different marks, hence different weightage in the overall score. There's no normalization of the raw scores. It is a standardized test itself. The questions are tested in different ways to figure out what is the difficulty of a question. And that accounts for any sort of, they don't need to normalize this. It's already a standardized test. Okay, let's move ahead for now. So let's talk about dealing with an adaptive test, because there's a lot of tests, a lot of questions are related to the adaptive nature. So when you look at an adaptive test, right, you need to understand that the score is a function of how many questions you have answered correctly and what is the difficulty of those questions, because not all the questions are going to have the same marks or the difficulty. So different questions carry different marks and different weightage in how it contributes to your score. Now, whether you get a question right or wrong determines the level of difficulty of the next. So let's say you have answered the first question correctly. The next question that you get will be either of the same difficulty or higher difficulty. Let's say you answer that question correct. The next question will be either of the same or higher difficulty. But let's say if you answer that question wrong, the question that you will get will be of either similar difficulty or lower difficulty. So it will keep changing depending on how you are performing on the test. You cannot go back to the questions that you already had, because then it kind of defeats the entire purpose of the adaptive nature. So once you attempt a question, you will not be able to go back to it. And that is why your response on a question determines the difficulty of the next question. So it is drawn from a pool of questions. So the system automatically running an algorithm figures out what should be the next question thrown at. It will give you a question, you have to answer it, and then only you move ahead. So you cannot skip or review or come back or change your response to an attempted. See, while you're on a question, and let's say you mark A, now if for some reason you think, no, the answer is B, now you can change the answer. But let's say you move ahead to the next question, then you'll not be able to come. Okay, so keep that in mind. When you see a question, you have to attempt it to move. Now, this is one last thing on dealing with an adaptive test. I have a few more points, but on this slide, this is like the last point. And this particular point is sort of a very under contention, because a lot of people think that there is no penalty. A lot of people say there is penalty. Couple of years back, from the NMAT officials, it was given that there is a penalty. Now they're saying there's not a penalty. So it's like a very disputed thing at this point of time, whether there is a penalty or not. But why we believe there is a penalty is because, first of all, it's there in GMAT as well. So the GMAT, which is the testing body for the GMAT. So there is also a penalty which has a similar format. The other thing is, people who have come back and told us that they were not able to complete their paper have reported lower scores than people who have completed their paper. So there is enough evidence to believe, though there is no way to ascertain what is the penalty, enough evidence to available to decide that, okay, there is a penalty. It might be slightly low, slightly high. We have no idea as to what that penalty is. But please ensure that you complete all the questions. That's the only thing that I would say. A lot of you have asked about what sort of penalty is there, but there's no way to figure that out either. Unless you, unless somebody actually does not mark a lot of questions and comes back and says that, okay, these are the scores that you got. But nobody will actually go and not attempt anything. So we'll not be able to figure out the penalty. The GMAT is never going to reveal their exact algorithm. So it's better to simply attempt each and every question that you see, try to complete it. So answering higher level questions correctly will yield a higher score than answering the same number of easy questions. The more higher difficulty problems you solve correctly, the higher your score is going to be. Now, avoid going too slow in the beginning. Generally, people say that you try to get at least the first 5 to 10 questions correctly and so on. Again, there is no way to prove those things. But don't go very, very slow. Sometimes people go very slow in the initial 5-10 questions, thinking that they'll be able to push the difficulty of the question higher up, and that will contribute to a higher score. But that doesn't mean that you go very slow. So you need to go at a pace wherein you're able to complete all the questions. So develop an efficient pace so that you don't run out of. Managing time well is very, very important. So don't go too fast to questions as you might commit unnecessary mistakes. Sometimes people go very, very fast and it doesn't really work. So you need to ensure that you're pacing yourself so well that you're not running short of time. At the same time, you're not going so fast that you're making this. And lastly, there's always a temptation where during the test, you start thinking, how am I doing on the test? But in NMAT, there's no point doing that because you never know what sort of questions are going to come ahead of you. And there's no point thinking, oh, I answered the last question and maybe it was easy. So have I made mistakes previously because I got an easy question or something? So don't keep thinking about how you're doing on the test. Let's go back. So I think this was one point. I'll just explain that last point again. Let's say the time runs out. There are 36 questions and you have, let's say, 52 minutes for the quant. Now, for some reason, in 52 minutes, you're able to do only 30. So there are 6 unattempted questions. The unattempted questions have a penalty. What is that penalty? We don't know. And NMAT has never revealed it. They're never going to reveal it also. So these are all specifics about the test. What is the point of getting into it? There is no reason for us to sit and here even discuss as to what the scoring mechanism should be. So that is how it is. You take a test, you get a score. That's the end of it. You just have to attempt everything. That is, you can guess the last question. That is not a problem. So I've already mentioned that should I ideally answer all of them because there's no negative. So you can guess all of them. Let's say there are 6 questions remaining at B. You guess those. But then what if all those 6 questions are wrong? Which is also going to hit you in some way. So if you're getting questions that are easy, incorrect, the next question becomes easier and so on, pulling down your score. So that is why you have to pace yourself well. so that you are able to attempt all the questions. Do we have a timer on the screen? Yeah, you can see all of that. So you'll be able to see you're on which question of that section. You'll also be able to see how much time has passed and so that is visible. That is not a problem. But once you attempt a question, you cannot go back. Pace yourself well. You have to complete all the questions. Let's also talk a little bit about the individual sections where again, NMAT is one test that I really like because they don't experiment too much, number one. And whatever they say, right, that, okay, this is the syllabus, they're going to ask questions from you. They're not going to go beyond that. And you have the official guide. And if you just look at the index of the official guide, that is enough for you to understand what question. So these are the topics that are tested, given by NMAT. You just have to focus on this. So there is no time, speed, distance. There is no geometry. A lot of students have this thing that I'm not good at time, speed, distance. I'm not good at geometry. Will I be able to do well on the NMAT? The answer is yes, because they don't even have those things. So number properties, they just focus on numbers, fractions, LCM, HCF, divisibility rules, logarithms. Logarithms means indices and surds is also there. In arithmetic, percentages, SICI, profit loss discount, averages, time and work, ratio proportion, partnerships. In algebra and probability, which is like an area that they look at, equations, inequalities, so linear, quadratic, both, sequence and series, so APGP, permutation, combination, and probability. PLD is profit loss discount. If you have to ask what is PLD at this point of time, I hope that you have started your preparation. So PLD is profit loss discount. The way TSD is time speed discount. Algebra probability, we already spoken about it. Data interpretation, multiple bar charts, 2 pie charts, bar chart plus pie chart kind of thing. So DI sets tend to get sometimes difficult because they, of course, also depends on how you have done on the test. But sometimes like a very difficult set includes a lot of calculations plus 2 bar charts or 1 bar chart, 1 pie chart kind of a combination. So typically, if you see something like that, could be a sign that, okay, you're done well on the test because you're generally not going to see very, very difficult here. Is there an on-screen calculator? No. Again, I suggest all of you please go to the NMAT website and read. These are very basic questions that I don't know why people should ask because all of it is there, right? I mean, go to the website, it is there. You don't really have to ask questions which are very basic like that. Data sufficiency, miscellaneous topics, right? Miscellaneous means all the topics that we have spoken about: numbers, arithmetic, algebra, and probability. So whatever the first three rows that you see, DS essentially comes from those 3 topics. So you can get DS questions from percentages, fractions, inequalities, and mixtures and alligation technically is also part of ratio proportion. So it won't hurt you to do it, though they have not given it as a topic. But mixtures, because it is also has like some part of it as partnership, some part of it as ratio proportion, it's better to do mixtures and alligation. General split is problem solving 19, DI 12, and DS 5. But the split can change depending on how you are doing on the test. Sometimes, let's say you are doing extremely well on the test, you might have maybe a more intense, difficult data interpretation. But otherwise, 3 sets is a standard thing. So the difficulty might change, but 3 sets is a very standard thing in the. Is this graph exact? No. As I said, it might fluctuate a little bit. You might have maybe more DS questions compared to PS questions. That can always happen. In data sufficiency, they can put TS. Depends, again, if they're looking at it as an average. So when you say time speed distance not being there, we're talking about very intense time speed. They can always frame a TSD question as if it is like an average question. But otherwise, explicitly, they have not given that topic in the book. The geometry and TSD does not appear in the book. How is the difficulty level of the questions? Nobody can say that. Firstly, it is, of course, lower compared to CAT in terms of difficulty. But then what exact difficulty you will get, that is a function of how you're doing on this. You might not be doing well, and that is why you're getting easy questions. Versus you might be doing very well, and that is why you're getting difficult questions. So it all depends on how you are performing. Are the questions shuffled for DI or individual questions are put together? Individual questions are put together. So once you get a DI set, the next 4 questions are going to be on that DI. Are the IMS mocks adaptive? Yes, they are. So the engine that runs is very similar to what you have for the NMAT. But then our scoring is slightly on a harsh side. So we give a lower score compared to what you would see on the exam. So if you're getting, say, a 220 or a 230 in IMS mocks, typically your score on the actual NMAT would be higher. Source of the above information. I have taken test 3 times. So whatever is coming from me. Logical reasoning. So in logical reasoning, around 50% of it is non-verbal, 50% of it is verbal. Exact number of questions from each of the areas you will not be able to find, simply because there is no one particular number that. So you might get more questions on grouping and conditionalities compared to say code, or you might get more strong argument question compared to a course of action. But roughly the split is half. So non-verbal reasoning is about half of it. All sort of puzzles, logical puzzles, ranking in queue, circular arrangement, linear arrangement, Venn diagrams, and so on. Verbal reasoning, all sort of critical reasoning. So critical reasoning in NMAT appears in the LR section. All your implicit statements, strengthening, weakening argument, some sort of decision-making thing, inference, conclusion-based questions, or even syllogisms. They appear in the logical reasoning. Okay, a lot of you have said that I have not been able to answer your question, but there are 360 students attending this at this point of time. And definitely it's not possible to answer everybody's question. I'm just trying to answer whatever is relevant. Please understand the situation in which I am, that I'll not be able to answer everybody's question in a format. But if you have any queries, you can definitely leave a comment on one of the links that I will give you at the end. So it's a blog that I maintain. You can comment on it and I will get back. In terms of syllabus, quant we have already discussed. LR also we have discussed, which is like half of. And verbal abilities. So in VRC, 12 questions on RC, which is 1/3 of your section. VRC is one area which people generally find easy on the FI compared to your quant and logic section. You will find the VA to be much more easy to handle. Reading comprehension, 3 RCs of 4 questions each translating to 12 questions. The remaining are parajumbles, analogies, fill in the blanks, multiple fill in the blanks, preposition-based questions, spotting the error, and all of that is your verbal skills. So grammar and vocab is definitely very, very important. A lot of those questions also appear as part of RC. And definitely when you have the single FIB, there also grammar is tested. So basically everything that is there in verbal put together here, except the critical reasoning part, which appears in the logic section. If you want to do, you can always refer the Barron's word list or the OG word list, etc. But then, I mean, the NMAT official guide, when I say OG, it is the NMAT official guide word list. Please note that with respect to vocabulary, no matter what you do, it is never going to be sufficient. So you always try to do, at least refer to one source, do as much as you can, and just hope that you will get something from that. Because there will always be words that you have not seen earlier. So don't spend like inordinate amount of time. At the same time, don't skip entirely. Either the Barron's word list or the official guide word list should be fine. Even the IMS material should be fine. So that's why I said, right, that no matter what you do for vocab, there will always be something that you're not seeing. It will be very rare instance that you've seen every single word that appears on. From where can you access the NMAT official guide? NMAT official guide, by the way, is a paid resource. IMS does not provide it. If you want, you can always buy it. It is available on Amazon. There is a hard copy version of it and there is a Kindle version. So if you want, you can buy it. Where can you get IMS material? I'm believing that you're an IMS student, so you already have the material which is there. If you're not, then you can always sign up for one of those exams. Is NMAT official guide worth buying? That's an interesting question, but I would look at it this way. See, if you already have IMS material and you've solved most of it or you're solving most of it, I don't really see why you need extra material. The official guide, at least the kind of questions, so if you want to have a look at it, if let's say you're enrolled at a center and at the center there is a copy or something, you can glance through it. Or if you find an old version, let's say 2020 or a 21 version, you glance through it. That is generally sufficient. If you want, you can go for it because any additional practice will not hurt you in any way. It will always give you some extra things that you will do. So if you're very, very serious aspirant on NMAT, I think it's fine to go for the official. But also see whether you will be able to finish it. Otherwise, there's no point collecting extra material. You already have IMS material and you're not even done, say 20% of it. And then you're running behind the NMAT official guide. I don't think it makes sense. But if you've completed most of your IMS material, you want an additional practice, so you are going for the official guide, that is fine. Overall prep strategy wise, make sure that you do topics that don't appear on the test, which is most of the LR part of it and the verbal part of the VRC section. So when you look at the areas that we spoke about, right, in logical reasoning especially, this is an area which is not tested on the test. And whatever is tested, it is also tested in very limited sense. So sequential output, for example, input output basically, coding, decoding, family tree, numerical series or alphabetical series. All of those things are not tested on the test. Verbal reasoning also, force of action, strengthening, weakening argument. These are not tested. So make sure that you spend time preparing for these. Even in VA, close passage, fill in the blanks, prepositions, grammar, vocab, they are not tested on the CAT explicitly. So that is why you need to ensure that you do these preparations because quant is sorted. Numbers, arithmetic, algebra, probability, if you're a CAT aspirant, all of this is done. You don't have to do any specific prep. For data interpretation also, it is coming from numbers, percentages, averages. So there's nothing specific prep that you need for quant if you're a CAT student. If you're a non-CAT student, then of course, going for maybe the NMAT official guide might help, or even doing extra difficult problems through the IMS dashboard, that will help. There is no definite split for DA. All of it is just dependent on the previous topics that you use. Geometry is not required, TST is not required. So devote time for these topics, and very, very important is the test taking part. It's not really about the syllabus because syllabus is covered. Let's say if you're a CAT student, anyway you've covered most of it. If you're a NMAT SNAP CET or NMAT SNAP CMAT kind of a student, then also you have covered your syllabus. That is not the issue. The thing is to adapt to the format. That is like the most important. So you should exactly know how much time you're spending and when you should move away from a question, what sort of risk to take. And so test taking is like the most important. So there are 10 IMS mocks that are given to you. And there are 2 mocks that NMAT provides. When you register and pay for the NMAT, you get 1 mock and you can retake that mock. There are technically 2 papers there. So 10 IMS mocks plus 2 official papers. 12 mocks generally would be sufficient. I honestly don't think you need more than 12 papers of NMAT to be in a good position. So mocks other than IMS, I don't really know. I haven't even seen those, so I'll not be able to comment on it. If somebody is going for a paid thing, I would rather tell you to go for the NMAT official paid mocks. So they have, I think, 2 mocks. I forgot the cost of it. But I have seen those papers in the past, as in the quality of the questions. Yeah, she's saying 900 rupees. So hope that is correct. So if you're going for that, that is still an investment which makes sense according to me, because those 2 tests are the closest that you can have to an actual NMAT paper. So if you are going for that, go ahead. No harm in taking it. Okay? But again, it's not that we are endorsing something, but we're just saying that if you want an additional practice apart from IMS and the free NMAT mocks, the best thing that will come close is the NMAT paid mocks. What is a general good score in IMS mocks? So last year, when I had a 281, I had done a official live sol and I had a 230 something, 232, I guess. So a 213, I think 215 onwards is a decent score. 210, 215, 220, 225-ish. 230 plus is generally a very good score in IMS. Do not spend too much time on any question if you don't know the answer. So if you see something that is from an area where you're not comfortable, it's better to take a shot at it and move. It might go wrong, but at least you will not run out of time. Definitely a test of speed. You have to go through all the questions, make sure that you attempt every single thing, whether right or wrong, that is immaterial. because the difficulty of the test will keep on fluctuating depending on how you are performing. So rather than thinking too much, make sure that you attempt all that. And lastly, very important point, that where you stand in your CAT preparation journey has nothing to do with how you will do on the NMAT. NMAT structurally is a very different test. It has very limited syllabus. The format is challenging. So you just need to adapt to the format. The content isn't so much that you'll not be able. Level of NMAT marks provided by IMS is same as the original one. As I said, the level of questions and the scoring is slightly different compared to the actual NMAT. So that is why in your IMS marks, you will find that you are scoring on the lower side. When you actually take the NMAT, you will find that your score is higher. So, and again, what you score is just reflection of that particular test. It does not mean that, okay, that is how you will do it on the final. So last year, right before I actually took the NMAT, I had taken one IMS mock towards the end and I had a 250 on it. I went for the test and had a 290, 91 to be specific. In their official mocks, in one of the mocks, I had a 370. So you just look at one particular mock score for what it is. You don't overthink that, okay, if I've got this much, this is how much I will get on the final. Don't really spend time on. So in terms of resources, we have NMAT workshops. I hope people have already attended most of these. They're going on right now. All of them are being delivered in the online format. Module 5 is something that you should definitely look at. The 10 IMS mocks that are given to you in your MyIMS dashboard. So doing this, plus additionally, if anybody is going for paid resource, my only recommendation would be the official guide and maybe the NMAT paid mocks. Beyond that, I don't really have any specific recommendation. So these two are essentially my last 2 years experiences, where I've listed down everything that happened. Generally, I come back from the test, and in the same day, I write down all my thoughts on the test. So in 2020 and 21, exactly what happened, both of them had the same format by the way. So please go ahead and read these two blog posts. Search for crackingct.com, and on the right hand side under the NMAT section, you will find these two articles. Please watch the NMAT and NMIMS form filling guideline available on YouTube. Go through the video and then only complete your application. How to analyze the NMAT mocks. So every mock is going to be different. So once you're done with the test, the only thing that I generally look for is what sort of mistakes have I made, and what are the correct answers. So if I've got something wrong, please figure out what is the issue. So in terms of content, I'm done. This is all that I had to say. If there are no questions, you can exit at this point of time. If you guys have any questions, feel free to stay back. I'll try and take as many as I can in about another 20 minutes or so.